everyone. Today we're going to talk a little bit about a group of letters that we have from the beginning of the second millennium BCE called the Royal Correspondence of Ur. And if you remember, Ur is a city down in southern Mesopotamia, and is a very important group of letters. And I'll just kind of run through what they are in, generally speaking, and then talk about maybe their use. So a good resource for this, and where I'm going to get, excuse me, a lot of this information. Of course, it's pretty well known, but Piotr Michalowski put a monograph together in 2011 called The Correspondence of the Kings of Ur. You can look down in the description section and see the citation for it. Excellent work, and really the one-stop shop place to go to talk about to get information on the Royal Correspondence of Ur. Excuse me. So essentially this group of letters consists of 24 different letters. Some of them they show up in pairs. So you have excuse me. You have a letter from a king to one of his officials, and then the response from that official back to the king. So they come in pairs like that. So the correspondence comes from kings that reigned during the Ur III period. And if you remember from the history videos, the Ur III period runs from roughly 2100 to 2000 BCE and consists of kings like Shulgi and Amarsuin and Shusuin and so forth. So 17 of the letters are either to or from the king Shulgi. 3 of them are to or from Shusin, and 4 involve Ibisuin, the last king of the Ur III dynasty. Each of them follows a pretty strict, relatively strict formula. It says, to so-and-so say, thus says so-and-so, thus says the person writing, and then the body of the text, whatever's being trying to be communicated, then a final salutation and closing formulas. We also have a group of letter prayers or letters of petition. Michalowski likes the phrase letters of petition. He has a good argument for why in his introduction. These are more poetic, and they contain a specific petition with a formulaic plea at the end. But we're going to focus today on just the correspondence of the kings to their officials. Now we have copies of these letters from the cities of Nippur, Ur, Isin, Uruk, Kish, my favorite city, Sippar, and Susa. And almost all of them come from the Old Babylonian period, which is important because even though they come from the later Old Babylonian period, remember 2000 to about 1600 BCE, they deal with rulers that reigned during the Ur III period from 2100 to 2000. So there's this debate that's been going on for decades about are these literary letters that were created during the later period and don't actually have any historical value, or were they copied from original early letters during that period? And if you want to read about the debate, please pick up Michalowski's book, and you can see the pros and cons, or those arguments for or against each of those positions. But certainly, I think that it would be safe to say that there is historical value in these letters. I think most people would, at least to some degree, agree to that. But they do come from the Old Babylonian period, and many of them come from Nippur at House F. And if you remember from other videos, House F is a scribal school. It's a house, obviously, but it's where scribal training took place. So that's going to inform, as you saw maybe in another video, the interpretation of how they were used, right? Their context drives how they were used. So what I'd like to do now is read one of the letters in translation, just so that you can kind of get a feel for what they sounded like. So this is a letter to Ishbi-Era from the final king of the Ur-3 dynasty, Ibisuin or Ibisin. Speak to Ishbi-Era, saying the words of Ibisin, your king. Then there's a break of about 5 lines. Now Enlil's heart is angry. And there's a break. The enemy, although not something, has mustered his army and has brought disorder in all the foreign lands. But then you, according to your statement, this is a letter that was written to Ibisuin from Ishbi-Era, and he's responding to it. But then you, according to your statement, had an omen telling you that now Enlil has returned to the side of his son Sin. You received 20 talents of silver to purchase grain. You purchased the grain at the price of 2 kor per shekel, only to return it to me as if you had purchased it 1 kor per shekel, which is a pretty significant difference. The hostile Amorite, having stationed himself in the frontier territory, the Amorites were the ones that were threatening the Ur-3 dynasty, the Ur-3 kingdom, or empire. Having come to know the strength of my household and its troops, how could you let him sweep into my frontier zone and capture all of my large fortresses? Why has Puzur Marduk, general of Badigi Horsanga, don't worry about it, not confronted the Amorites? So he's saying, why didn't you stop them? Why didn't you go and confront them? Your powerful forces were never brought into play. It is because of your self-confidence that the monkey, that's what they called the Amorites, has been allowed to come down from its mountain. Now I am overhauling 180 great barges. And if you read the letter that Ishbi-Era sent to Ibisuin before this that he's responding to, he's saying, hey, in order to get this right, send me a bunch of ships loaded down with stuff. We'll talk about, I'm sure Megan will talk about that in her history section of the Ur-3 period. But Ibisuin responds, okay, I'm preparing those boats. Each vessel with a capacity of 120 kor, that's a unit of measurement, as well as overhauling 600 barges with a capacity of 60 kor each. Shu Enlil, governor of Kish, Nor Ea, governor of Eshnuna, and Puzor Tutu, governor of Borsippa, have handed over 72,000 kor of grain to you. And therefore you should measure out the silver that you have, as well as what was set aside for even the most exalted allotments to pay for the 72,000 kor of grain. That was all sort of detailed. You don't really need to remember any of it, but the ending here. Do not dare to come back here until you have dispatched the grain to me. Guarding Nippur and Isin, those 2 cities, is your responsibility. It is urgent. So you can see that these letters are designed, you can hear the formulae, the individual formula that's used here, but they're relaying what seems to be real information about a particular period of time. So again, you can read through the arguments for and against historicity in those letters, but that's what one of the letters sounds like. So their use, and we'll end with this. If you saw the video on the farmer's instructions, you see that I talk about their use, its use in scribal education, and the same thing is true of the royal correspondence of Ur. They're found in educational contexts, scribal training contexts. Usually the tablet types on which we find these letters tell us that they're used often in the advanced level of the curriculum. So as the scribe has already advanced to a later stage, that's when these are introduced. And they're used to teach letter writing formulae. So again, letters during the Old Babylonian period are very formulaic. And so, these formulae are used, Sumerian letters tend to have the same sort of formulae throughout them. So, learning to copy these letters, be they from a king to an official or vice versa, showed the formulae that the scribes would have to use when writing letters. And it also taught them the epistolary jargon, so which verbs are used in which places, which nouns are used, and how to do greetings and closings of letters. This was all very important in writing a letter because of how fixed the formula were. So that's why they were used in the scribal education context, just as in the farmer's instructions or in literary texts in general. They have a very didactic function. They're used to teach scribes how to do their jobs. Thanks.